The desert ridge burns low in the distance, orange fire bleeding through the dark. Convoy engines idle under sand haze, headlights cutting narrow tunnels through drifting dust. Major Aaron Halverson, Marine Corps, commands a mixed logistics column halted on open ground. Her convoy sits 2 miles from a downed aircraft where 2 heat signatures still register, one weak, one fading. Signal returns fade to half strength. Command repeats the stand-down order. Extraction delayed. She answers with composure, her tone flat against the static. Solid copy. Her subordinates wait for movement that doesn't come. 10 minutes of fuel left for the gun trucks. 12. Maybe. If they idle low. The math sits in her head. Distance. Burn rate. Casualty risk. Visibility falls under 100 yards. She checks the tablet. Map routes blanketed in interference. A gloved hand closes it. Her watch ticks in her peripheral vision, each second cutting down the recovery window. Liability sits with her alone. She's the ranking officer on the ground, accountable for both the convoy's safety and the lives still flickering on that ridge. Command frequency drops into static. Engines vibrate steady, patient, waiting. Sand scrapes across the steel hulls, the sound like fine glass being ground down. Gunfire echoes off rock farther north. The convoy waits for permission that may never come. Fuel reserve clocks under 12 minutes. 0312 hours. Recovery window closing. Major Halverson watches the thermal screen. 2 white dots almost gone. Her fingers hover over the radio toggle. Procedure says hold. Instinct says move. The decision forms in silence, shaped by responsibility more than defiance. This is where it starts. Residual dust drifts under the floodlights. Diesel fumes hanging low across the vehicles. The convoy silhouettes stay frozen on the map projection as Marine Command begins formal recording. This is the handoff between field and file, where action becomes documentation. Signal relay stays clear for now. Static bursts once, then drops out to silence. A map overlay flickers blue across the tablet screen. Coordinates locked in for review. Dust hangs under the lights. Mission log 0419 hours. Channel integrity confirmed. This record is part of the official broadcast log, maintained under U.S. Marine Command Authority and presented for operational accountability. You're in the loop now. Subscribe for full mission access, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from right now. At 0204 hours, the convoy holds in open desert under shifting moon haze. 10 vehicles spaced 50 yards apart, idle low against the crosswind. The night air carries grit that scours every exposed surface. Static pops faintly through the command net. Each operator checks, gauges, confirms intervals, and waits. The mission's directive remains unchanged. Maintain perimeter security until further tasking. Visibility drops under 200 yards. Major Aaron Halverson, Marine Corps, sits in the lead vehicle with her crew. 39 years old, commanding officer of a mixed logistics column assigned to resupply forward repair sites. Her task tonight is procedural, defined by chain and checklist, until an aircraft goes down less than 2 miles off their assigned corridor. A faint strobe from a survival beacon flashes against the sand haze beyond the ridge. She notes it without comment. The operations officer at higher headquarters already knows. Crosswind speed exceeds safe rotor launch limit. Command over the radio orders a hold. Air rescue assets grounded until wind vectors stabilize. She acknowledges in calm monotone, solid copy, holding perimeter. Her words carry through every truck in the column. Drivers reset clocks. Fuel officers recheck burn rates. Gunners rotate per schedule. Routine discipline holds the line between silence and chaos. Every operator knows waiting under exposure burns fuel faster than moving. No one says it out loud. Command channel clarity fluctuates. Sand rattles against hulls in thin, steady bursts. The noise never stops, just shifts direction as the wind changes vector. Each gust feels colder than the one before. Her navigation tablet glows soft green, showing the corridor in irregular lines where dust occludes satellite returns. She draws her gloved finger along the margin, mapping possible routes in case movement authorization comes through. Her sergeant rides 2 seats back, eyes on instrument readouts, maintaining the checklist cadence without pause. Convoy spacing confirmed at 50 yards. A low hum builds through the chassis as engines idle under strain. The dashboard clipboard trembles slightly, its metal clip tapping the surface in rhythm with the vibration. It's the kind of detail everyone hears but no one acknowledges. The sound measures stability. She adjusts her headset, listens to a burst of static. Then the operations officer's voice breaking through. Flat, procedural, reading a command relay that hasn't changed since the first call: maintain perimeter until air assets confirm safety corridor. She logs the timestamp. Liability for the convoy's welfare sits with her. She writes her initials in the margin. Fuel status reads stable but trending down. Behind her, the rest of the convoy forms a shallow arc. Headlights remain off, only blackout markers showing faint green points through dust. The atmosphere glows faintly with moonlight filtered by haze. The ridge beyond stays barely visible, its outline more imagined than real. In that void, the survival beacon continues to pulse. Each flash marks another second of 2 lives still waiting. Thermal interference spikes across the tactical net. Halverson's NVG lenses catch the reflection of her own screen, a pale shimmer across glass. She doesn't speak. She watches the data scroll and hears background chatter between her platoon leads checking supply locks, turret rotations, and fuel transfers. They sound steady, methodical. That steadiness is the only defense left against rising uncertainty. Sand taps across steel like rain on tin. The convoy waits, not from fear, but from compliance. In military time, waiting is an action. Situation report visibility 200 yards. The operations officer calls again from higher, tone precise but detached. Air command still evaluating weather. No ground movement authorized until sensor confirmation. She replies the same as before, word for word. Solid copy. Standing by. Her sergeant looks over, waiting for the next instruction. She nods once toward the ridgeline. Keep eyes on the beacon. Log intervals every 5 minutes. Nothing else needs saying. Everyone understands the margin for error shrinks. With every minute they remain still. Signal-to-noise ratio drops below operational clarity. Wind increases, coating the windshield with fine grit that sparkles under flare light from the distant ridge. She wipes the glass with a gloved hand, then stares back at her watch. Every cycle of the second hand marks lost opportunity. She knows recovery windows in this terrain close fast. Heat dispersion, loss of radio battery, terrain drift. She logs that too. Her responsibility isn't feeling it, it's recording it. Sand impact intensifies along starboard vehicles. She reviews the convoy's condition. 10 trucks operational. Fuel status within threshold. Communication stable but degraded. Her sergeant reports back through radio discipline: convoy perimeter maintained. No movement beyond phase line. She acknowledges. The format never changes. That repetition is its own kind of armor. Procedure replaces emotion, especially when command's timeline diverges from ground reality. Navigation accuracy reduced due to atmospheric interference. She leans closer to the radio mic. Voice, even. Halverson actual. Perimeter intact. Visual contact with beacon confirmed. The response from operations comes slower this time. Static filling the gaps between syllables. Hold position until further assessment. Air still negative for launch. The line cuts briefly, returns, then ends with a clipped acknowledgement. She sits back, jaw set. Her hand rests on the closed map tablet. Decision and defiance have the same starting posture. Stillness before movement. Thermal relay signal degrades to minimal trace. The air grows heavier, pressing against every surface like static weight. Sand slides across armor plates, whispering through seams. Somewhere behind the second vehicle, a driver coughs over intercom, mutters about fuel draw. Her staff sergeant answers with a curt copy: maintain idle discipline. The phrase echoes through the net, part command, part reassurance. The convoy's hum resumes its steady rhythm. Command feed delay exceeds 3 minutes. A flash from the ridge cuts through haze. One more pulse from the survival beacon. Fainter now, slower. She leans forward instinctively, measuring distance by timing the blink. 2 miles in these conditions might as well be 20. Still, she records it. The act of recording is control. Behind her, the radio hisses, clears, then fills again with wind noise. The operations officer's voice breaks through once more, still composed, still certain that holding position is the safer call. He doesn't see the fuel clock, the storm, or the signal fading to nothing. Crosswind intensifies beyond safe idle threshold. She looks back at her crew, faces illuminated green by instrument light. Every Marine stays disciplined, no one breaking formation. The professionalism she drilled into them keeps the line intact, even as the system above begins to lose picture. She checks her watch again. 30 minutes until critical fuel load. Command still calculating. The convoy still exposed. Procedures still running. Somewhere, the first crack in the system forms. The widening gap between what the field knows and what the screen believes. This is where the fracture begins. At 0645 hours, the storm edge reaches the corridor. Rain falls in thin, uneven sheets, turning dust into weight. The ground hardens under the tires, then softens again where runoff gathers. Visibility drops to less than 200 yards. The convoy holds formation across the low ground, engines idling, lights diffused by the haze. The ridge remains 2 miles out, its line swallowed by weather. Signal quality drops below 50%. Major Erin Halverson keeps her voice level as she keys the radio. Request updated rules of engagement. Convoy fuel low. Crash site still active. The response comes filtered through static. Command denies movement. Maintain perimeter. Await air assessment. Her sergeant in the gun truck hears it too. Glances through the rain at her vehicle, waiting for confirmation. She gives none. The convoy remains locked in idle, caught between procedure and exposure. Visibility down to 150 yards. Her windshield fogs despite the wipers running full sweep. A thin film of mud streaks across the glass, glowing faint under instrument light. The map display flickers, radar overlay struggling to track terrain under interference. She taps the screen, sees her own position blink, vanish, then reappear several yards off. The tablet warns of data loss. She closes it, relies on compass bearings instead. Outside, headlights reflect off wet armor, casting each vehicle in a pale ghost pattern against the dark. Command channel cuts to standby tone. Wind-driven rain scours the convoy line. Voices crackle through short-range intercoms, tight and formal. Fuel log updated. Ma'am. Current reserve at 20 minutes for gun trucks, 30 for haulers. She notes it without visible reaction. Her clipboard rests on the dash. The handwritten fuel log now blotched by water. The ink smears, but the numbers hold. She flips the safety cover on the radio switch to isolate local comms. The air inside the cab smells of metal and diesel. Fuel window narrows to 20 minutes. She checks her wristwatch, calculates distance again, 2 miles to the downed aircrew. The terrain between here and there narrows into a defile marked by collapsed ridgelines and water channels now filling with runoff. The ridge beacon still pulses faintly on thermal. 2 heat spots. Still alive. She knows it without saying. The convoy waits for her order that command refuses to authorize. Every second extends the liability chain, her name on the line for action or inaction both. Wind shear exceeds rotor-safe limits. Thunder rolls far east, its echo bouncing through the open plain. The sound merges with the low hum of idling engines. Each truck's vibration sinks into a rhythm that measures tension better than a clock. Inside her vehicle, the crew sits silent, eyes fixed forward. One Marine adjusts his NVGs, wipes condensation from the lens. The major writes in the margin of her clipboard, ROE requested X3 denied. The pen presses hard enough to cut the paper. Static distortion increases on all frequencies. The operations officer's voice comes back, faint and clipped. Negative movement. Sit tight. Airfield rescheduling evac window. Wait for confirmation. The message repeats twice, each time with more static. She listens to it fully, logs the timestamp, and then lowers her pen. Copy. It's the formal answer, not agreement. The air pressure drops. Rain thickens, pounding against the hull in a steady hiss. Her sergeant checks the external cams, reports minor drift in formation. She acknowledges. Keep spacing. Convoy spacing holds at 50 yards. The next burst of wind carries fine grit that rasps against the doors. Headlights blur into smeared halos. The map screen dies entirely. She flips the radio back to battalion channel, repeats her status report verbatim. Fuel low. Crew beacon visible. Convoy holding. No answer this time. Only a low hum of static and the mechanical whine of interference. The rain rises and falls in short gusts, soaking the sand until the ground ripples under the tires. Transmission delay now exceeds 1 minute. One of the junior drivers keys up on internal comms, his voice careful. Ma'am, if air's grounded, what's our next move? She doesn't answer right away. Procedure demands silence until command responds. Finally, she says, we wait for verification. Her tone leaves no space for speculation. The driver's acknowledgement is a soft copy, swallowed by the channel hiss. Outside, the storm flashes white for half a second, lightning too far to hear but close enough to show the ridge silhouette. Barometric pressure drops rapidly across sector. The convoy becomes a sequence of shapes in fog, every truck in line now dampened with reflective glare. The water running across the ground leaves shallow channels around tires. Her sergeant's voice again, lower, beacon dimming. Ma'am. She tilts the NVG feed toward the ridge and sees the pulse slow. Once every 15 seconds now. She logs it with the same care as before, then marks a note beside it. Possible power depletion. Crew survival window closing. Visibility reduced to 100 yards. Inside the cab, condensation builds along the roof. A droplet falls onto the map case, spreading across the paper edge. Her gloved hand moves it aside. The air smells of ozone and wet electronics. She breathes once, steady, before toggling back to command channel. Battalion. This is Halverson Actual. Recommend limited recon. 1 vehicle. Confirm site condition. Silence follows. Then, faint and mechanical request denied. Maintain position. She stares at the radio for 3 seconds before answering. Solid copy. Her crew hears it, understands everything unsaid. Command relay strength at 30%. Lightning flashes again. The ridge vanishes behind a curtain of rain. The sound of metal flexing under temperature change cuts through the cabin. A long, low groan from the armor. The vehicle feels alive, straining under weather and weight. A new noise overlays it. Distant rotor wash. Faint and directionless. But she knows it's not from friendly aircraft. Too erratic. Too uncoordinated. It fades quickly, replaced by thunder. Thermal return integrity drops below operational tolerance. The convoy's headlights stretch out in reflection, a chain of white across mud and standing water. Marines lean from open hatches, scanning sectors. Each one knows their arcs, but not their outcome. The radios hiss. The major checks her handwritten fuel log again. Gun trucks at red line by 0710 hours. Her sergeant reports. She nods. Acknowledged. The storm noise drowns out the rest. A vibration underfoot signals one truck revving to maintain idle pressure. Another answers in kind. Chain reaction of machines keeping themselves alive. Command channel intermittently cuts to dead tone. She tries the secondary frequency. Static only. The ridge beacon flashes once more, then disappears for 10 seconds straight. When it returns, it's dimmer. She knows that power source is failing. She logs another note. Voice steady. Signal fading. No change in authorization. Her sergeant exhales slow. If we lose that ping, we lose them. She answers without inflection. Noted. The windshield wipers skip, catching on grit. Each pass leaves a smear of mud. Wind gusts exceed 30 knots. The radio crackles again. The operations officer speaks faster now, distorted by the channel. Weather projection worsening. Hold your ground. Air rescue delayed another 45 minutes. She listens, glances at her watch, then at the fuel gauge. She knows the math doesn't work. 45 minutes means loss of mobility. If the storm traps them here, recovery becomes impossible. She leans back in her seat, eyes closing briefly as she calculates burn rate, distance, and time. When she opens them again, the decision line is visible. Waiting. Infrared scan reliability below baseline confidence. She reaches for the safety cover on the radio switch again, flipping it closed. Local net only now. Her sergeant watches, reading her intent. He doesn't speak. She shifts her tone from formal to operational brief. We'll hold as ordered. Maintain readiness posture. Log every 5 minutes. He nods once. The crew returns to routine tasks, clearing condensation, monitoring gauges, logging intervals. Discipline stays intact even as the window narrows. Fuel margin drops to 15 minutes. Rain hits harder, driven by crosswind. Each impact echoes off the steel roof like small stones. The convoy sits inside a world of noise, every sound layered with static and tension. She feels the vibration of the truck under her boots, steady but strained. On her tablet, the map glitches again, flashing a red warning, terrain model unavailable. She closes it one more time and stares through the windshield at the invisible ridge ahead. Command net delay increases beyond tactical usability. She speaks into the recorder, voice precise. Convoy status stationary, visibility 100 yards, fuel critical, communication degraded, awaiting further instruction. She releases the mic, listens to the static, then marks the time. Outside. Thunder rolls longer now, shaking the ground. Her sergeant shifts his stance, looking through the side window. Storm's moving east, he says. She nods once. We're still in it. The two words carry all the weight needed. Infrared feed drops completely. The convoy's lights glint against the water pooling around tires. She stares forward, watching each drop of rain trace a slow descent down the glass. Her breath leaves a faint fog against the inside of her visor. Beyond the noise, she can still hear the rhythm of the engines. Still running. Still waiting. For now, command's order stands. Order hold perimeter, overruled locally. The major exhales, slow and silent. The fuel log sits open beside her, ink bleeding down the page. The ridge stays hidden, the beacon nearly gone. One decision separates discipline from failure. She counts down from 10 in her head, checks the clock again, and listens to the rain as the last stable second passes. The ridge comes into view through thinning rain. The storm lifts in fragments, leaving fog rolling low across the slope. Mud clings to the tires as the lead trucks advance, engines straining at redline. Lightning flashes across wet rock, revealing broken debris from the downed aircraft. The survival beacon no longer pulses. Major Aaron Halverson steps out first, her boots sinking half an inch into the clay. The convoy holds position below, lights muted under mist. Command still transmits a repeat order to stand down. She keys her mic and acknowledges receipt, then switches to the encrypted recorder. Fuel reserve drops below 5%. The slope rises steep and uneven. Two Marines climb alongside her, one carrying a breaching kit, the other a stretcher. Wind drives residual rain sideways. Her staff sergeant reports over local comms that the gun trucks are repositioning to cover arcs. Headquarters warns again. Weather instability. No verified target data. She replies evenly. We're confirming by sight, not assumption. Her tone stays calm, clipped, leaving the channel open for audit. The ground crunches underfoot, where rock gives way to composite fragments. A flash of aluminum under the mud confirms partial wreckage. Wind speed stabilizes at 20 knots. She signals halt. The team fans out, rifles angled low, not searching for combat, but for survivors. A handlight sweeps the slope, its beam glancing off twisted landing gear. The smell of burned fuel lingers under wet air. Her sergeant calls it in. Visual on crash panel? Possible crew position 50 yards ahead. She answers. Proceed slow. Document every meter. The sound of engines idling below carries faint through fog, steady and rhythmic, a reminder of the ticking fuel clock. The ridgetop cuts sharp against clearing sky. She climbs the last 10 yards and sees them. 2 bodies, one moving, one still. Contact confirmed at 2-man trigger site. She kneels beside the first. The pilot, half conscious and tangled in straps. The cracked flight helmet lies a few feet away, visor fractured, edges filled with rainwater. She stabilizes his airway, signals for the corpsman. Her sergeant secures perimeter with 2 riflemen. The second figure is unresponsive, trapped under a section of wreck panel. They lever it free with a pry bar, mud sliding around their boots. No return fire, no movement beyond their own. She keys up to headquarters again. Negative enemy contact. 2 U.S. Aircrew recovered. 1 alive. The answer returns distorted copy. Maintain position. Await further verification. She doesn't respond. Rain density drops to light mist. A single burst of static breaks across her headset. Another operator somewhere on net repeats coordinates, wrong by several hundred yards. Command's grid mismatch appears again. She logs the error, voice neutral. Command grid off by 0.8 kilometers. Correction issued. The staff sergeant's voice cuts in. Major, we're exposed up here. Recommend we pull back 200 yards to the downslope for extraction. She nods, glances toward the vehicles, headlights barely visible through fog. Do it. Mark a secondary LZ below the crest. The team moves with mechanical precision, dragging the stretcher downhill through slick mud. Fuel temperature reaches operational minimum threshold. The engines rev as vehicles reposition to cover approach. One truck reverses too fast, wheels spinning in wet clay, spraying mud across armor plates. She guides them by radio, voice level, ease throttle. Hold line on my laser mark. A green beam flickers through haze as the gun truck steadies its course. The convoy reforms a half-moon perimeter along the ridge base. In the background, thunder rolls again, distant, not threatening. The storm has spent itself, leaving the smell of ozone and burnt insulation. The staff sergeant checks his watch. Evac corridor clears in 15 minutes if wind holds. She nods once. Extraction corridor reclassified safe. She crouches beside the recovered pilot, now conscious, breathing shallow. The corpsman adjusts the sling tightening around his arm. Stable for lift, he says. Her recorder light blinks red, logging every voice in range. Copy. Documented. The second aircrew member remains still under tarp. She reaches forward, adjusts the covering, and notes time of declaration. Her tone does not change. Lightning flashes again, distant enough to illuminate the terrain for a full second. Every line of the wreck site becomes clear. No enemy, no movement, only proof of error in the original report. She keys the transmitter one final time. Battalion. Confirm record. False geometry verified. Hostile count 0. Air cover reacquires signal at 0 range. The comms officer on the other end pauses before replying. Repeat your last. Her voice stays measured. 0 enemy remain. Repeat. 0. She ends transmission. A silence settles over the ridge, broken only by wind scraping through loose tarp. The helicopter they were denied minutes ago now calls inbound, vectoring through the same storm that grounded it. She marks coordinates for visual reference, then switches the recorder to external mode. The log will carry this exact sound rotor wash scattering debris, rain lifting off steel, her voice issuing extraction coordinates without deviation. Rotor wash builds from the east. The first rotor beats echo across the valley. Visibility wavers as fog swirls around the convoy. Her sergeant reports from the perimeter wind pattern steady. All vehicles accounted. She glances at her gauge. Fuel indicator flashes red but holds. She checks the time. 0725 hours. The bird appears through mist. Lights cutting through gray. She directs ground smoke for marking. One signal only. The tarp over the casualty lifts under rotor blast, snapping against the stretcher frame. The helicopter hovers, downwash tearing loose dust into spirals. Voices on the ground coordinate loading sequence. She speaks each step for the recorder. Fuel reserve drops below 3%. Rounds strike rock. 2 impacts, short and harmless. The escort gunners trace direction. Find nothing. False echoes from thermal clutter. She logs it as interference, not engagement. The crew lifts the first Marine aboard. The rotor wash loud enough to drown all other sound. The staff sergeant helps secure the second casualty for transport. Her voice cuts clean through static crew secured. Extraction in progress. The pilot aboard raises a weak hand in acknowledgement as the lift line clears. The helicopter banks left, disappearing into fog toward the west. The sound fades into steady silence. Contact resolved, 0 enemy remain. The convoy begins its reverse sequence, 1 truck at a time, engines grinding through wet terrain. Halverson moves last, scanning the ridge one final time. The broken helmet lies where she found it, water still dripping from its visor. She kneels, picks it up, sets it on a sandbag near the wreckage. Recovered evidence. Logged, she says quietly for the recorder. The staff sergeant approaches, mud streaking his uniform. Command will want this debrief clean, he mutters. She nods once, then we keep it that way. He hands her the data slate with coordinates. She presses the transmit button. Voice steady. All recovered units accounted for and en route. The final engine revs as the column descends into low ground. Rain fades to drizzle, sky brightening to dull silver. The road below glistens with standing water. She watches the ridge vanish behind them, then keys the encrypted recorder one last time. Action concluded. Accountability confirmed. Command authorization pending. The device beeps, securing the log. She clips it to her vest, where it will stay until review. Every decision now exists in recordable proof. No interpretation. No rumor. Only traceable conduct. The immediate threat is contained. The record stands. 2 days later, inside the field command trailer, the atmosphere is measured and still. Rain hits the aluminum roof in steady rhythm. The air conditioning hums low, masking the faint conversation from an adjacent room. It is approaching 0200 hours. A reviewing officer sits behind a metal desk, a digital clock glowing red beside a stack of files. Across from him, Major Aaron Halverson remains composed, uniform pressed, hands resting flat on a folder marked Incident Log, Ridge Corridor. The dashcam playback runs on a nearby monitor. The footage shows the ridge, the storm, the convoy's movement. No voices are raised. The officer pauses, rewinds, and plays the segment where her recorded command aligns with the transmission timestamp. The hum of the printer joins the rain, steady and indifferent. A clerk annotates the record in silence. Procedure defines every motion. Timestamp verified against transmission log. The reviewing officer signs 1 page, then passes the folder forward. Each signature up the chain confirms lawful decision-making. The major's written statement remains brief. Situational authority exercised to preserve life. The officer reads it once, then closes the folder. Paper slides across the desk with a metallic scrape. On the monitor, the convoy headlights fade into rain. All signatures complete. The printer stops. The hum of electronics fills the gap. The light from the screen flickers across steel surfaces, catching the edges of the signed report. The officer presses a final key to upload the digital version to archive. On screen, the confirmation line appears as text and voice together. Review complete, action justified. Outside, the rain continues. Softer now. The clock advances another minute. The room remains quiet, defined by process. No celebration, no reprimand, only verification. Discipline, not emotion, sustains control. The convoy sits silent under floodlight haze. Dust hangs in the air, unmoving. The rain has passed, but the ground still bleeds mud around the tires. The hour is 02:0800. The ComNet remains quiet. No traffic, no orders, no interference. The only sound is a generator hum and the faint pop of a cooling engine. Every decision from this point is human. Radio static holds 5 seconds, then clears. On her console, the mission log blinks red. The Major's hand rests near the radio switch, thumb hovering without motion. Higher headquarters has gone dark for verification. The ridge behind her marks the place where command delay almost cost 2 lives. The map glows on her visor, a reflection of control and consequence side by side. Follow orders or act? This question now sits with you. Do you wait for clearance that may never come, or move before the window closes? Comment your choice below. Hold position, or proceed. Dawn rises over the ridgeline. The wind moves slow across open ground, carrying the smell of wet sand and diesel. The convoy sits quiet now, engines idling low as power systems wind down. Rotor wash from the last lift stirs loose debris near the landing zone. Then fades into distance. Light spreads along the horizon, outlining the tracks left through the mud. Every mark leads to a record, and every record leads to the next report. Final convoy check complete. Inside the command tent, a clipboard closes over a stamped folder. The digital clock on the wall turns 0600 hours. A single tone confirms secure transmission. Outside, the sky clears, soft gray turning to light gold. The trucks roll slowly back toward the highway, tail lights fading into order. Next mission ready? Like this debrief, share it, and subscribe. Another operation is already waiting.